My mother sneered that I would never even own a reliable car, let alone anything of value. She and my brother summoned me to dinner to mock my small life and demand I sell my condo to save him. They didn't know I was a billionaire. So I made one phone call and showed them exactly what my small life had built. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The text message lit up my phone with all the subtlety of a house fire. It was from my mother, Brenda. "Lisa, you need to be at my house for dinner Friday. 7 p.m. It's an emergency about Kevin. Don't be late." I was sitting in the middle of a sterile, white doctor's office, the paper crinkling under me as I shifted. I'd been fighting a bronchial infection for 2 weeks, and my body felt like a lead weight. The doctor had just finished writing me a prescription for a stronger antibiotic, his face a mask of professional concern. I was exhausted, vulnerable, and in no mood for my family's manufactured drama. But emergency about Kevin was a special kind of code. It meant he had messed up again, and as always, they expected me to be the cleanup crew. I typed a simple, "I'm not feeling well, can we do this another time?" My phone buzzed instantly. "This can't wait. Your brother's future is at stake. Stop being selfish and be here." Selfish? The word was a familiar sting. For 20 years, I had been the selfish one because I had moved away. I was the disappointment because I had a quiet job in data entry and lived in a small, modest condo. I drove a 10-year-old hatchback. In their eyes, I was a failure. My brother, Kevin, who lived in a flashy rental condo he couldn't afford and leased a luxury car, was the success. Never mind that my mother co-signed for all of it. I let out a dry, wheezing cough. The doctor looked at me with pity. I just nodded, paid my copay, and walked out into the cold air. I knew I would go, I always did. But as I sat in my simple car, the car my mother had once laughed at, a cold, hard resolve settled in my chest. This time would be the last time. The betrayal of their demand, while I was so clearly unwell, was worse than the infection itself. The next 2 days were a blur of antibiotics and long-distance conference calls. My simple data entry job was a fiction I had constructed 2 decades ago. In reality, I was L.A. Morgan, the founder and CEO of Apex Transport Solutions, a $2.8 billion global logistics empire. My company owned ports, fleets of semi-trucks, cargo planes, and container ships. I was L.A. to my board and Ms. Morgan to my 15,000 employees. I was just Lisa to my family, the quiet, unimpressive daughter who worked with computers. I had built my empire in another city, fueled by a single memory, my mother, Brenda, laughing in my face when I was 20. "You," she'd sneered. "You'll be lucky if you ever own a reliable car." I had never corrected their assumptions. Their disdain was a shield. It kept them at a distance, allowing me to build my world in peace. On Friday, I felt physically drained but mentally sharp. The fever had broken, leaving behind a chilling clarity. I drove the 40 minutes to my mother's house, my old hatchback feeling strangely comfortable. I parked on the street, half a block down from the gleaming, leased sports car in her driveway. Kevin was already here. I rang the bell and my mother opened the door. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe. I was wearing simple jeans and a turtleneck, my hair in a plain ponytail. "You look tired," she said, not as a question, but as a judgment. "I've been sick, Mom." "Well, try to pull yourself together. We have serious things to discuss." Kevin was at the table, scrolling on his phone, the picture of unconcern. "Hey, Lise, glad you could finally make it." "Hello, Kevin." The dinner was tense. My mother's roast was dry, but I ate it without complaint. They made small talk, insulting my car. "Is that thing still running? My condo, so tiny, and my job, are they ever going to promote you?" I just nodded and sipped my water. They were laying the groundwork, trying to make me feel as small as possible before the ambush. I let them. I watched them circle, like lazy, overconfident predators. They had forgotten one crucial thing about me. They saw me as a mouse, but they had forgotten I was a viper. My mother, Brenda, had worked her entire life as a clerk at a department store. It was an honest living, but it had made her bitter. She craved the status and wealth she saw other people have, and she was furious that life hadn't handed it to her. I, her quiet, bookish daughter, was a profound disappointment. I didn't have the flash she wanted. Kevin, on the other hand, was her masterpiece. He was handsome, charming, and loud. He looked successful. She had poured every spare dollar and every ounce of her credit into building his facade. Kevin, now 39, had never held a real job. His latest venture was day trading, which, as far as I could tell, meant losing my mother's money in high-risk online gambles. He wore designer clothes, with the tags often left on, and spoke with a booming, false confidence about market volatility and portfolio diversification. He was a hollow shell, polished to a high shine by our mother's desperate ambitions. My own past was one of quiet sacrifice. I had worked 2 jobs to put myself through college with no help from them. I started my company with a $5,000 loan from a friend and a single, rusted-out delivery van. I had worked 20-hour days, sleeping in my office, reinvesting every penny. I had built my empire on the back of the insult my mother had hurled at me. "You'll never own a car." The irony was so rich, it was almost suffocating. I didn't just own a car. I owned entire fleets of them, moving goods across continents. After the plates were cleared, Brenda folded her hands. "Lisa, we need to talk." Kevin put his phone down, adopting a serious expression that looked comical on him. "Listen, Lise, I've had a temporary setback." "He's in trouble, Lisa," Brenda cut in, her voice sharp. "Those online traders, they were a scam. He owes $80,000 and they'll take his car. And the condo?" Her voice cracked, but the tears were for the things, not the situation. "And what does that have to do with me?" I asked, my voice quiet. "Don't be stupid," Kevin snapped. "You have to help. Mom's tapped out." Brenda nodded, her face hardening. "He's right. You have that little condo. You don't need it. You can sell it and give Kevin the money. It's the least you can do for your family. It's your duty." I stared at them. They weren't asking. They were telling me to liquidate my only significant asset to save the man who had done nothing but mock me. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it was almost impressive. For a moment, I was speechless. I saw my mother's eyes dart to Kevin, a small, triumphant smile on her face. They thought my silence was capitulation. They thought they had me. That was my turning point. The exhaustion, the sickness, the years of quiet humiliation, it all burned away, replaced by a cold, precise anger. The victim was gone. The CEO was here. "You want me to sell my home," I stated, my voice dangerously calm. "It's just a tiny box, Lisa," Kevin scoffed. "You can get a small apartment. It's not a big deal." "It's a big deal to me," I said. "But I suppose family is family. I need to see the numbers. I'm not just handing over money without knowing where it's going. If I'm going to sell my condo, I want to see the debt. All of it." This surprised them. They expected me to either cry or argue. They didn't expect a request for due diligence. Kevin blustered, "It's complicated, you wouldn't understand." "Try me," I said, pulling my work laptop from my bag. It was a top-of-the-line model, far too powerful for a data entry clerk, but they never noticed. "Show me the statements." Reluctantly, Kevin logged into his trading account. My mother bustled off to get proof from his creditors. They thought I was just a naive woman playing business. They didn't know I had a chief financial officer on my personal payroll who specialized in forensic accounting. While they gathered their papers, I quietly tethered my laptop to my phone's secure hotspot. I wasn't just investigating Kevin's debt, I was activating my trap. My leverage wasn't just my money, it was information. Under the guise of checking my work email, I sent a single coded message to my CFO: "Activate Project Sundown, full asset review, stand by for comms." He knew exactly what it meant. He was to get ready for a public reveal. I then opened a simple spreadsheet. "Okay, Kevin," I said, my voice full of false sincerity. "Let's go through this line by line." For the next 20 minutes, I played the part of the confused, overwhelmed little sister. I let Kevin explain his complex system, which was clearly just a high-stakes gambling addiction. The scam wasn't a scam at all, It was just a margin call. He had bet big and lost everything. The $80,000 was only the beginning. "This looks very bad, Kevin," I said, shaking my head. "We know it's bad, Lisa," my mother snapped, slamming a stack of red-stamped envelopes on the table. "That's why you need to call a realtor tomorrow." I can't," I said, letting a tremor enter my voice. "What do you mean, you can't?" Kevin exploded, standing up. "Are you really going to let me be homeless?" "No," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "It's just, I can't sell the condo, because it's held in a trust, an irrevocable one. I can't touch the principal." They both froze. This was not part of their plan. A trust," Brenda stammered. "What are you talking about? You don't have enough money for a trust." "It's a legal structure, Mom. I set it up a long time ago for asset protection." Kevin's face turned a shade of purple. You're lying to get out of helping me. You've always been a selfish snake, Lisa." He was posturing, trying to threaten me, but all I saw was a terrified little boy. His lies were so poorly executed, so transparent. "I'm not lying, Kevin," I said. I pulled my phone out. "In fact, I have a call scheduled with my financial manager right now to discuss our quarterly performance. Perhaps you'd like to listen in. He can confirm it." Before they could answer, I dialed my CFO, David, on speakerphone. "David, good evening," I said. "Ms. Morgan," his crisp, professional voice filled the small dining room. "Right on time. Are you prepared to review the fleet acquisition?" Kevin and Brenda stared at the phone. "Ms. Morgan," Brenda mouthed, confused. "One moment, David," I said, holding my hand up to them. "Fleet acquisition, what's that?" I asked, playing dumb for their benefit. "The $110 million order for the new LNG-powered carriers, ma'am," David said, a hint of confusion in his own voice. "Did you not want to?" Right, I said, cutting him off. Yes, please, go ahead and authorize it. And David, just for the record, could you confirm my liquidity status? My family is concerned about my finances." There was a moment of baffled silence on the other end. "Ms. Morgan, your liquidity?" David asked, clearly thrown. "Your personal liquid assets are currently just north of $400 million. That's not including the corporate holdings or the real estate trust. Is everything all right?" Brenda made a small, choking sound. Kevin's jaw was on the floor. "A trust," Brenda whispered, her eyes wide. "He said trust." "Thank you, David. That will be all for now." I hung up. I looked at my two stunned, silent family members. The color had drained from their faces. "As I said," I continued, my voice even and cold, "my condo is in a trust, along with my houses in London, Sydney, and New York. And no, Kevin, you can't have $80,000. It's a rounding error, but it's my rounding error. And you are a bad investment." Kevin, desperate, tried to regain control. "You're lying. You hired an actor, you work in data entry, you drive that piece of junk." He sputtered, pointing out the window. "That piece of junk, as you call it, is what I drive when I don't want to be noticed. My other car is a Maybach, but you're right, Kevin, I don't really own a car." I leaned forward. "I own a company that currently has a fleet of 58,000 transport vehicles. Trucks, vans, ships, and planes. I am Apex Transport Solutions." My mother just shook her head, muttering, No, it's not possible." I stood up and put my laptop back in my bag. "I've been Ms. Morgan for 20 years, Mom. The failure you see before you has a net worth of $2.8 billion. And I built it on the single, motivating phrase you gave me all those years ago. You'll never own a car. So, in a way, I should be thanking you." I walked to the door. "Kevin," I said, pausing with my hand on the knob, "my advice to you is to sell your leased car, declare bankruptcy, and get a job. A real one. Don't ever call me for money again." Brenda finally found her voice, a high-pitched wail. "Lisa, you can't do this to us. He's your brother." I looked back at her, my face devoid of all emotion. "You haven't been my family in 20 years. You've just been an audience." I opened the door and walked out into the cool night air, leaving them to the ruins of the lives they had built on lies. A week later, I was back in my city, back in my real office. It was a corner suite on the 60th floor, with glass walls overlooking the sprawling city and the port beyond. My infection was gone, and I felt lighter than I had in years. I had my lawyers draw up official papers, legally severing all financial ties and responsibilities from my mother and brother, not that any existed. I was done. Then my private assistant buzzed me. "Ms. Morgan, your mother and brother are in the lobby. There, causing a scene, they demand to see you." I sighed. Of course they were. They hadn't driven 5 hours to apologize. They had come to escalate. "Send them up, Maria, and please have security on standby." When the elevator doors opened, Brenda and Kevin stormed out. They stopped dead when they saw the office, the expanse of glass, the busy, professional staff, the rich mahogany of my desk. This was not a data entry office. This was a seat of power. "Lisa," Brenda started, her voice faltering for the first time. "It's Ms. Morgan in here, Brenda," I said, not standing up. "You have 5 minutes." Kevin, seeing his inheritance that never was slipping away, went for the only play he had left: aggression. "How dare you?" he shouted, stepping toward my desk. "You sit up here and tower and let your own family starve. We're ruined, it's all your fault." "My fault?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "I'm not the one who gambled away his mother's retirement, Kevin. I'm not the one who lived a lie for a decade." "You lied to us," Brenda shrieked. "You let us think you were poor." "No," I said, standing up calmly. "I just lived my life. You assumed I was a failure because I didn't fit your tacky, shallow definition of success. You never asked about my job, you never cared about my life. You only cared about what you could see and what you could take." As if on cue, 2 security guards appeared at the office door. "Now," I said, picking up my pen, "you can either leave on your own or my security can escort you out. And just so we're clear, if you or your creditors ever contact me again, my legal team will file harassment charges. Are we understood?" Kevin looked at the guards, then at me. All the fight went out of him. He was, as I'd always known, a coward. Brenda just stared, her face a mask of horrified realization. The daughter she had mocked, the one she had tried to bully into poverty, was the most powerful person she had ever met, and she had lost her forever. They turned, and in a moment of true, triumphant finality, they were escorted from my office. The downfall of Brenda and Kevin was swift and total. Without my mother's credit or my non-existent bailout, Kevin's house of cards collapsed. The leased sports car was repossessed. He was evicted from his condo. The creditors, seeing he had no assets, forced him into bankruptcy. The last I heard, he was working at a fast food restaurant, a job he'd been forced to get by the bankruptcy court. Brenda had to sell her house, the house I grew up in, to cover the debts she had co-signed. She moved into a small, government-subsidized apartment for seniors. I, on the other hand, felt a profound sense of peace. A few months later, I was at a gala, accepting an award for Logistics Entrepreneur of the Decade. My CFO, David, was at my table, along with the few true friends I had made. As I accepted the heavy crystal award, I thought about that moment in my mother's dining room. I'd used my network not for revenge, but for justice. I'd anonymously submitted evidence of Kevin's reckless trading to the state's Financial Crimes Division. He was fined heavily for several violations, ensuring he would never be able to trade again. After the gala, David raised his glass to me. "To L.A. Morgan," he smiled. I smiled back, clinking his glass. "No, David, tonight it's just Lisa." I never heard from them again. The silence was the greatest gift they had ever given me. I had finally closed the loop on that old, painful insult. My mother was right. I never did buy a car. I bought an empire. And I had finally parked it, secure and safe, in a place she could never, ever touch.